All right, let's break this down. Today, we are going on a serious investigative journey into a story that's literally been passed down for millennia. We're talking about a city of absolute wonder that a lot of folks just completely dismissed as a mere story. Just a wild flight of imagination. We are exploring the legendary city of Dwarka, the magnificent capital of Lord Krishna. For centuries, right, this place only existed in the pages of ancient texts like the Mahabharata and the Bhagavata Purana. But here's the kicker. What if its watery demise wasn't just mythology? What if this was actual recorded history, just sitting there, waiting for science to finally catch up?
Section 1. Dwarka. Is it a myth or is it reality?
Okay, let's dive into this. Was Dwarka really just a myth? See, over 5,000 years ago, this remarkably advanced city was said to thrive. Yet, modern historians pretty much completely dismissed it. Why? Well, simply because they couldn't just dig it out of the dirt. It brings up a really profound question about historical bias, doesn't it? We kind of have this habit of assuming our modern understanding is the ultimate limit of ancient reality. The text described a city so mind-blowingly grand that it just seemed impossible. So, boom, it gets labeled a myth. But does time really have the power to suppress a truth that massive forever? Can the ocean just hide its secrets eternally?
Which brings us to Section 2, the historic discovery of 1983.
To actually get to the truth, we've got to shift our perspective away from just reading ancient scriptural texts and look at a tangible, modern scientific expedition. The year is 1983. The restless, deep blue waves of the Arabian Sea, right near the Oka coast in Gujarat, were finally about to give up a secret they had guarded for thousands of years. Armed with modern scuba gear, a super determined team of Indian marine archaeologists descended into the depths. And honestly, they had absolutely no idea that in just a few moments, they were going to witness something that would literally rewrite the history books. I want you to imagine this. As these divers reach the ocean floor, peering through the swirling sand and rocks, their breath literally caught in their throats. Down there in the deep, they found structures that were absolutely, definitively not the work of nature. They were staring at perfectly straight, geometric rows of stones. They saw masterfully carved pillars and massive, undeniable structural walls. The impossible was right there in front of them. This city, the one everybody said was just a fairy tale? Yeah, it was quietly staring right back at them from the bottom of the sea. Section 3. A grand maritime capital. Now, to truly wrap our heads around this city, we have to look at its origins. It was built as a safe haven to escape the tyranny of King Kamsa on land actually requested from the ocean god. And the name itself, Dwarka, literally translates to the city of doors. But actually, that wasn't just a nod to its architecture, it was a really profound symbol of openness. See, Dwarka wasn't some closed-off, militarized fortress. Not at all. It was a peaceful, thriving hub, totally designed to connect traders, ideas, and diverse cultures arriving from the sea. It boasted this incredibly progressive social order where religion, commerce, and everyday life just flowed together in perfect harmony. Now, what's really interesting here is the sheer scale of their urban planning. We're talking 5,000 years ago, and it would absolutely stun a modern engineer today. Get this, over 900 grand palaces, described as having walls literally gleaming with gold and silver. They built perfectly straight roads leading right to the ocean. They had highly advanced drainage and irrigation systems, and incredibly safe harbors and docks for massive merchant ships. Make no mistake, this was an extraordinarily well-organized maritime capital that was just leaps and bounds ahead of its time. Section 4. The Curse of Destruction. History tends to tell us a pretty tragic truth. Civilizations that are far ahead of their time often meet really unusual ends. Following the totally devastating Kurukshetra War, Queen Gandhari, after seeing the bodies of her 100 sons, delivered this chilling curse to Lord Krishna. She said, "Just as my lineage was destroyed, so will yours be destroyed." But, and this is absolutely crucial to understand, this wasn't some kind of superstitious magic spell. It was a profound moral warning. It was basically a declaration that whenever power and arrogance surpass righteousness, destruction inevitably follows. Let's move to and see how this builds across the timeline. The fall of the Yadavansh wasn't from some big external invasion, right? It was a total internal collapse. After Kurukshetra and Gandhari's curse, arrogance just really started to take root. You see this first in the mockery of sages at Pandara, a sign of really deep disrespect. And that moral decay, it ultimately culminated in the fatal clashes at Prabhas, where brothers literally turned on brothers in an act of absolute self-destruction.
Finally, with the departure of Lord Krishna, which effectively marked the end of an entire era, the fate of Dwarka was completely sealed.
What happened next is honestly deeply poetic. This great, magnificent city didn't burn to the ground. It wasn't ransacked by enemy armies. There was no crazy, sudden tsunami either. Instead, it was a silent, gradual destruction. Without a single war, without any fire, the sea level just slowly began to rise. The waves quietly crept into the streets, climbing up those beautifully carved pillars, and finally claiming the palaces. It was almost as if the ocean was peacefully, but inevitably, just taking its land back.
Which leads us to Section 5, when science confirmed it.
For centuries, those ruins just lay there, totally silent. But 20th century technology finally allowed them to speak. And this brilliantly illustrates the connection. Ancient texts specifically described the ocean slowly reclaiming the land, right? Well, modern marine archaeology actually confirms it. Sonar mapping has definitively, without a doubt, proven that the sea level in this exact region rose between 5 to 9 meters. The geological science perfectly, and I mean perfectly, aligns with the scriptural descriptions of how the city went under.
And you know, the scientific validation actually gets even more stunning. Carbon dating of the recovered artifacts confirms their age to be anywhere between 5,000 and 7,000 years old. That places them securely between 1500 BCE and 3000 BCE. Guys, this is not a coincidence. This scientifically matches the exact timeline that the ancient texts had been claiming all along. It absolutely proves that this wasn't just some random, scattered settlement, but a highly planned, incredibly ancient civilization. So what does this all mean? The story of Dwarka teaches us something incredibly profound. Faith and science, they aren't actually opposites. More often than not, they are just two different paths leading to the exact same truth. One path allows us to feel it and remember it, while the other allows us to measure it and prove it. A city that was brushed off as a myth for centuries is now verified history, sleeping quietly right there beneath the waves. And it really makes you wonder, if the golden city of Dwarka was real all along, what other ancient myths are just waiting beneath the surface for us to finally discover?